Good morning, Vietnam.
Probably don't know what that's
You probably don't know that's an old Robin Williams movie.
from. Really good. You should watch it.
Really, really good. Sad, but a good movie. Funny. It's funny too,
Well, because it's Robin Williams.
because it's Robin Williams. It's funny. However, so anyways, focus. Focus, focus, focus. Take a look. Learning target number 3 is on the screen. Differentiate between the political and cultural aspects of the Yuan and Ming dynasties in China. Like how I put Spanish with
With your
China,
China.
with China. Did I say it in English? Pretty bilingual. All right.
All right, let's get to this PowerPoint here.
Bum, 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 bum.
We're going to start with Kublai Khan, one of the grandsons of Genghis Khan. He obviously has many grandsons, but this is one of his grandsons, and he actually comes in and completes Genghis Khan's quest to take over China. And so he storms into Beijing, takes it over, and starts up the Yuan dynasty. And he takes it over from the Song dynasty that we were learning about. In 1276 comes in, and he expands the dynasty, takes it into Tibet, Korea, Vietnam, and brings in this huge dynasty of China.
Huge tracts of land. So anyway, so that's Kublai. All right. And so let's see here. Let's see. There's fear that Mongol culture would be absorbed into the Chinese culture, so he reserved the highest positions in government and military only for Mongols or non-Chinese. Now, so this is important because there is going to be kind of a backlash between, like, a separation, I should say, of like Chinese culture and Mongol culture. And it's going to impact the next dynasty that's going to come up, the Ming dynasty, because they're going to want to get back to the Chinese because the Mongols kind of force out, Chinese culture and then replace it with this blending of everything that they've seen. And so, like this says, they didn't bring in Chinese Confucian scholars into uh, the Yuan dynasty. What they did was they brought Persian scholars back from the Middle East in those conquered territories and had them set up shop and run the government in China. So,
I mean, they liked a lot of Chinese culture. They kept a lot of it, but mostly in the government aspects, they didn't really like having Chinese people in there. They liked having Mongol people in there. They liked having Arab people in there. It says here that Kublai Khan's palace was designed by Arab architects. So you're looking around, you're seeing all these Chinese art, and then all of a sudden his palace looks completely different. Because as you know, that Middle Eastern architecture looks a lot different than Chinese, and that's really what the Ming wanted to bring back. But we're gonna stay on Kublai Khan here.
they said this is the biggest, baddest, coolest of all the Khanates. All right, and so they are the gold standard for everything in the world, and which brings us to
Marco,
Polo, Marco.
Polo.
Did you ever see that commercial right now? It's like Geico
Oh
commercial where
yeah.
he's like, io sono Marco Polo. And it's like Marco Polo actually in the pool with kids
While
playing,
they're playing Marco Polo,
but they don't see that it's actually the real Marco Polo.
and then he's like, "What's going on? Why are you saying my name?" And then he's like, "Oh!" And then there's like a llama outside the pool. It's really weird. I love
Anytime there's a llama. Now, so the idea that we bring Marco Polo into this is that if you didn't know, Marco Polo was one of the most well-traveled human beings of his time period. And from Europe, from Italy, and I don't know if you remember Ibn Battuta, but he was that Muslim scholar that traveled all over the world. Marco Polo is the same guy, just from Europe. And he leaves Europe and he travels across
the Silk Road
Silk Road
because it's super safe now.
and he wants to go check out Kublai Khan and he wants to be a part of his court and learn and experience everything there.
Well, he's actually there for 17 years. He works for Kublai Khan in his government. He assimilates himself into that culture there and just absorbs it all together. And then he comes back to Italy, writes this great book about how the riches of the Mongols, their postal system, the size of the Mongol cities, just everything great about this Mongol empire, trying to show to the Italians and the Europeans what's going on over there in the Far East. And actually, what's kind of depressing is a lot of people who read his book were like, Psh, that's not real. You're making this all up. And a lot of people didn't believe him. But some people did, and it actually helped foster a new type of trading and cultural exchange in Europe. So what the Mongols did all the way out there in China traveled all the way back through Marco Polo and through other people and helped out Europe.
Uh, Again, another example of cross-cultural uh, exchange. All right, you can see there's his paths. He's up there. Guys back then had sweet beards. All right, sweet beards. Um, Now, connections around the world. So more things that China is in the Yuan dynasty are impacting the rest of the world with. Um, so we know that the Pope hears about Marco Polo and all of his findings, and so they always want to set up missionaries. They want to spread Christianity. And so he sends priests to Beijing. And so what happens is, he tries getting Christians into China to spread it.
And Kublai Khan listens to these Christian missionaries and these priests, and he's like, that's cool, but he doesn't actually really convert. But he lets those people come to his dynasty and convert other people who'd like to become Christian.
And then Muslims also set up communities in China, obviously with trading and that. You're going to see, because of the Yuan dynasty, you're going to see a lot of foreigners living in China, which again is going to come up under the Ming dynasty, and they're not going to be cool with that, all right? Some things that China had developed that is going to kind of impact the rest of the world and influence it. Obviously, we talked about porcelain. They had playing cards, gunpowder, um, song before them, had the paper money. So all of these inventions and cool items that people so wanted in the Middle East and in Europe
Came from China.
is coming from China. And so China is making bank. They are doing well economically.
So, like every great thing, the Mongols kind of fall. After Kublai Khan dies, the Mongol Empire kind of declines with him. Since he was that big guy, the one that all the other Khanates looked up to, eventually with his death, the Yuan dynasty starts to crumble and the Ming dynasty comes up. And then in the other Khanates, they start to kind of wither away as well. But the most important thing is that the Mongols brought this world together. So even though they crumble, they brought the world together, and then that continues to keep going even after they are gone.
Now, so when the Yuan fall, a Chinese dynasty takes back over. So the Yuan was Mongol, the Ming is Chinese, and they go back to a super like Chinese cultural way of life. All right. They wanted
Nothing to do with the Mongols.
nothing to do with the Mongols. They want to bring back all of those Chinese traditions and in kind of like this re-Chinification of China. So that means bringing back Confucianism and the civil service exams. Um,
They watched over their government, made sure there was no corruption, weeded out maybe any Mongols, any other foreigners, brought back Chinese people into the heads of the government. They made sure that agriculture was expanded. It's like this was a golden age for China. Population was at 100 million people. We're talking 1400s, and there's 100 million people in China at this time.
that's a lot of people at the time. Boatload of
A
people.
lot of people.
Crap ton. Anything else? Anything else you can say what means a lot?
Not off the top of my head right now.
Yeah, I got nothing either. Crap ton wins. All right. So you can see that the Ming dynasty is a very big dynasty.
Unfortunately, a little bit smaller than what the Yuan dynasty was, but still, I mean, that's pretty big.
Uh, it is a golden age in Chinese history. Again, things are going very, very well. Cities are flourishing. There's trade and industry.
You're starting to print books, so they actually came up with the printing style of writing of painting blocks and then putting those blocks onto sheets of paper so then you can have multiple copies of them. The printing press over in Europe wasn't invented until like the 1700s. We're talking 1400s, and the Chinese already have made a printing press. They come up with new operas, which is like a new thing at this time, and so people are going to watch these new Chinese operas. Novels are starting to come up, so now we're not just having scrolls, we're having actual books that people are reading. And also, because they wanted to keep those Mongols out, they revamped working on the Great Wall of China, and a lot of what you think of when you think of the Great Wall is what they built.
So there's a Great Wall. There's some that blue and white vase right there is very, very. I'm going to say indicative of the Ming Dynasty. That pottery that came out of there had a very, very, that blue ink with the white porcelain was very unique Ming Dynasty. That
It's
was kind of their trademark.
what you think of today when your parents say, "I'm bringing out the China." Well, that's China because it came from China. It's crazy, right?
Crazy.
Crazy.
Cray, as the kids say nowadays. And one of the other things that they did was they had this guy, Admiral Zhang He. All right, and he started these expeditions, 7 of them, from 1405 to 1433. And so, Ms. Firehammer, I'm sure you know the answer to this. When did Columbus sail the ocean blue?
1492.
1492, but of course. And so, if you take a look at this, this is almost 100 years, 90 years, 87 years ahead of Columbus, and he goes out, and Miss Firehammer and I, being the history nerds that we are, find great humor in this. Go ahead.
Yeah, so that little ship right there that's being circled, that's Christopher Columbus's ship, which you think of was probably a huge, huge ship. But then behind it is what this guy, Zhang He, went out with. Like this ship, it's just, yeah, the Christopher Columbus's ship is so tiny next to this huge, gigantic ship that was sailing around. And Zhang He went everywhere. As you can see in the map above, he went out to Japan, he went out into the Red Sea, went to India, went to Africa, years before even Western Europe was getting everywhere. So that was one of the things that the Ming started, was traveling around the world.
Now, no, Danielle, that's not you. Last thing to tell you, because I think that was it, right?
That was
Yep.
it.
Last thing to tell you is that the Ming are going to get paranoid. And remember how we said all of those people, outsiders that were there from the Yuan dynasty, the Muslims, the Christians, they're going to get the Arabs. They're going to get paranoid, and they're going to kick everybody out of China, and they're going to destroy all of these ships. They are going to destroy all of these ships, and they say, we don't want any contact with the outside world.
China is perfect the way it is. We don't need anything else.
And so, like, we'll leave a couple of cities here for people to come trade and drop their stuff off, but they can't come into China, and we don't want anybody there, and we don't want anybody leaving. You're leaving.
I think that's it, guys, and we're kind of going into class time now, so we'll see you in a sec.
Later, Gators.